reason, and respect is an invaluable skill. It is this very skill that our participants will stay with, challenging norms, defending ideas, and most importantly, learning from one another.
To move on further, I, Muhammad Ali, along with my friend, signing to proceed with the program. To begin with, let us now unfold this distinguished and eminent gathering with the recitation of verses from the Holy Quran by Master Muhammad Hussain from class 25, followed by translation by Master Muhammad Abdullah from class 21.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا يتخذ المؤمنون الكافرين أولياء من دون المؤمنين ومن يفعل ذلك فليس من الله في شيء إلا أن تتقوا منهم تقاه ويحذركم الله نفسه وإلى الله المصير قل إن تخفوا ما في صدوركم أو تبدوه يعلمه الله ويعلم ما في السماوات وما في الأرض والله على كل شيء قدير يوم تجد كل نفس ما عملت من خير محضرا وما عملت من سوء تود لو أن بينها وبينه أمدا بعيدا يوم تجد كل نفس ما عملت من خير محضرا وما عملت من سوء تود لو أن بينها وبينه أمدا بعيدا ويحذركم الله نفسه والله رؤوف بالعباد قل إن كنتم تحبون الله فاتبعوني يحببكم الله ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم والله غفور رحيم قل أطيعوا الله والرسول فإن تولوا فإن إن الله اصطفى وعلى إبراهيم على العالمين صدق الله العظيم.
Assalamu alaikum. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Believers should not take disbelievers as guardians instead of the believers. And whoever does so will have nothing to hope from Allah, unless it is a precaution against their calamity. And Allah wants you above Himself, and to Allah is the final reward. Say, O Prophet, whether you conceal what is in your hearts or reveal it, it is known to Allah. For He knows whatever is in the heavens and whatever is on the earth. And Allah is the creator of everything. Watch for the day when every soul will be presented with whatever good it has done, and it will wish that its misdeeds will far off. And Allah wants you about Himself, and Allah is ever gracious to His servants. Say, O Prophet, if you sincerely love Allah, then follow me. Allah will love you and forgive your sins. For Allah is all forgiving, most merciful. Say, O Prophet, obey Allah and His messengers. If they turn you away, then truly Allah does not like the disbelievers. Indeed, Allah chose Adam, Noah, the family of Abraham, and the family of Imran, above all people of their day. Jazakallah. Jazakallah khair. Debate is contention and argument, strife and dissension in a deliberate assembly. It is a method of presenting an argument in a disciplined way where two sides oppose each other. Now, I call upon the Literary Secretary, Umair Amjad Khan, to welcome the gathering.
Words are, in my not so humble opinion, our most inexhaustible source of magic, finely quoted by J.K. Rowling. Respected principal, honorable judges, esteemed teachers, distinguished guests, and my dear friends, a very pleasant morning to one and all. As Literary Secretary, it gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to our much awaited annual English debate competition, a platform where ideas meet confidence, opinions challenge perspectives, and voices rise to inspire change. Today, this stage becomes more than just a platform. It becomes a place where confidence speaks, ideas are challenged, and words have the power to inspire, influence, and create impact. Whether speaking for or against emotion, each one of you contributes to the spirit of healthy discussion and intellectual growth. I would also like to extend a heartfelt welcome to our esteemed judges, whose valuable presence and thoughtful evaluations makes this event even more meaningful. To all the participants, remember that success is not only about winning, but about speaking with confidence, listening with respect, and leaving an impact through your words. With great enthusiasm and anticipation, I once again welcome you all to the annual English debate. Remember, words can inspire and words can destroy. So choose yours well. Thank you. Thank you. To the participants, I would like to remind you that the true essence of this event is not merely about winning or losing. It is about growth. Every argument you make, every rebuttal you face is a step forward in your intellectual journey. Whether your stance is affirmed or contested, you leave the stage better equipped to navigate the complexities of the world around you. Remember, the power of the good arguments lies not in its volume, but in its substance and delivery. Now, let's have a look at the rules. Each participant given a code number, which will figure in the judge's evaluation sheet. The participants must not reveal their names or identities at any time of the speech. Each speaker will be allotted 3 minutes to deliver the speech, with a grace period of 15 seconds to conclude his speech. A warning bell will be rung at the end of 3 minutes. The second bell at 3 minutes and 15 seconds indicates the expiry of the grace period. The third and the final bell will be rung at the end of 3 minutes and 20 seconds. If the speaker continues to speak after the third bell, it will result in his disqualification. The main speech will be followed by a rebuttal session. Each speaker will be given 1 minute and 30 seconds for the rebuttal. The decision of the panel of judges will be final and indisputable. The rules for the rebuttal are as follows. The rebuttal round, every contestant of both teams will rebuttal for maximum 1 minute and 20 seconds, which includes the grace period. At the end of the first minute, there would be a warning bell. Further 10 seconds is permitted as grace period, and a second bell will be rung in its completion, and a third bell will be rung after the next 10 seconds. This is the final warning bell. In case the speaker crosses 20 seconds, it will eventually lead to disqualification. Furthermore, the participants can carry the paper to the podium with them. Let me now take the privilege to introduce the panel of jury of the event. May I have the pleasure to introduce Mrs. Sonia Sampson and Mrs. Asfina Hussain of 9 to 12 Girls. Sorry. May I have the pleasure to introduce Mrs. Akhtar Razana and Mrs. Asfina Hussain of 9 to 12 Girls. Without further ado, let's begin the event. First round of debate. Let us now move on to the main phase of the debate. Words are more powerful than any weapon, so let us now witness the war of words. First, I call upon the 14 member F1 to present his views on the topic.
Let me begin with a simple question. If a house is on fire, would you start decorating the room? Because honestly, this debate feels exactly like that. On one side, we are discussing rockets hitting the moon. On the other side, we are discussing millions of people struggling to eat their next meal. So the real question is not science versus humanity. The real question is priority versus reality. Respected judges, honorable teachers, worthy opponents, and my dear friends. Good morning to one and all present here. Today, I rise to strongly support the motion. Eradication of poverty is more important than space. Whenever a rocket from Earth breaks through the atmosphere and enters space, it stands as a powerful reminder of human ambition, scientific progress, and collective global pride. But this pride cannot replace food. Patriotism cannot replace healthcare. And satellite images cannot soothe the suffering of starving. According to the United Nations, millions of people are still struggling with poverty and malnutrition, fighting every single day just to secure 2 meals. 2 weeks. This is not statistics. This is an unfortunate reality. And honestly, talking about the universe where people struggle for basic survival is just like putting a golden roof on a house with no walls. My personal opponents believe that space is an investment. Really? Go to a farmer in Bihar who's buried under debt and mention, don't worry about the monsoon. We just sent the road to the Jupiter. This is not real progress. It is a misplaced priority disguised as progress. Now, they may argue that space missions bring jobs, technology, and innovations. And yes, they do. I do not deny the value of science. But when people are struggling from healthcare, education, and shelter, priorities matter. And this reminds me of Chandrayaan. In 2023, a spaceship which cost 650 crore rupees landed on the moon. But my question is, was that really the right priority? I'm saying this because the same amount would have been spent over 6 lakh children turning poverty to opportunity. The same amount would have provided 20 crore to people who still ask every day, आज रोटी मिलेगी या नहीं? My friends, I am not against space missions. Science matters, innovation matters. But human dignity matters more. The moon has been there for billions of years. It can be. Child crying for milk tonight cannot. So next time humanity dreams of building homes on Mars, let us first ensure that no human is struggling for a house on Earth. Because history won't remember us for the largest cities or for the rockets we launched. It will remember us for the people we lifted. Thank you. That was it. It is powerful talk. Thank you. Now let's see how A1 from the opponent team contradicts.
Imagine a world where every single space agency has now been shut down. The $126 billion global annual space budget has now been redirected. No GPS, no satellites, and no weather forecasting. But poverty still travels. Why? Because our dear reformers forgot to mention the $2.887 billion burning in global military budgets. They forgot to mention the $5.9 billion in fossil fuel subsidies. They forgot to mention the $1 trillion evaporating every single year due to corruption. They forgot to mention the $427 billion hiding in tax evasion every single year. My opponent saw all of this and still said, you know what the real issue is? That things. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not economics. This is finding the smallest target in the room and acting as if you solve the crux. Americans spent $12.2 billion on Halloween in 2023, 163 times the amount of money spent on the Chandrayaan 3 mission. Americans spent $136.8 billion on their pets in 2022. The global gambling was worth $449 billion in 2022. So apparently, dog winners acceptable. Losing money to the slot machine, a pillar of civilization, can be called essential, but a satellite which wants you about cyclones too expensive, absolutely extraordinary priorities. India's annual space budget was $1.98 billion. The Chandrayaan-3 mission costed $75 million. The Mangalyaan mission costed $74 million. And India's multi-dimensional poverty rate fell from 55.1% in 2005 to 16.4% in 2022. That is 450 million people lifted out of multi-dimensional poverty. China's annual space budget was 12 billion USD. They made the China space station and the Beijing satellite network for $8 to $12 billion each. And their extreme poverty rate fell from 88% in 1981 to 0% by 2021, which is 800 million people lifted out of extreme poverty, the greatest ever poverty reduction in human history, all while having one of the greatest space exploration in human history. For every dollar spent by NASA, $714 is returned. The global space research economy is worth $613 billion and is projected to reach $1.8 trillion by 2035, one of humanity's highest returning investments. Since 1990, global extreme poverty has gone from 1.9 billion to under 700 million people. That is a reduction of over 63%. All while satellites are orbiting, rockets are being launched, and space agencies are expanding. And yet, my dear opponents blame at that pedestal. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the difference between a headline and an arm. Thank you.
That was A1 with his convincing pause. Moving on, the next contestant is F2 from the 40. May I invite him to present his views for the motion? Why? Humanity proudly gazes at the sun. Millions on this free earth are unable to gaze beyond the next meal. One world is chasing galaxies. The other is fighting for survival. Before we build homes on Mars, we should ask why millions still don't have home on Earth. Honorable judges, respected teachers, my dear opponents, and of course my dear lovely audience. Salaam alaikum and a very pleasant morning to one and all. Today I stand before you to speak for the motion on the given topic, eradication of poverty is more important than space missions. According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, basic survival, food, water, shelter forms the foundation of human life. Yet over 700 million people still live in extreme poverty. Let that sink in. While billions are spent on Mars missions, lunar exploration, approximately 25,000 people die every single day due to hunger-related causes. So I ask, can we truly justify investing in interplanetary dreams while the lives are being lost in silence? Space exploration may represent human curiosity, but eradicating poverty represents human conscience. Let me present a real-world case study. In 2020, global space agencies spent billions on missions like Mars exploration, satellite launches. At the same time, during the same period, the World Food Program reported that around 9% of total population is severely undernourished. Experts estimated that even a fraction of space budget would significantly reduce hunger and improve global food distribution. This is not just about stopping progress, it's about choosing priorities wisely. Poverty is not just lack of money, it's a cycle. Without education and opportunities, it continues, but the right investment can break it. Science should serve humanity. What is the meaning of discovering new planets if we fail to take care of our own? True progress is not measured by how far we have traveled in space, but by how far we have permanently suffering on Earth. A single space mission can cost anywhere between $2 to $30 billion, depending on its scale and complexity. That's not just money, that's potential. With even a fraction of it, we could provide clean drinking water to entire region, fund universal vaccination program, build schools for millions of underprivileged children, strengthen healthcare system in developing nations. The child dying of hunger today does not have the luxury of waiting for tomorrow is coming on Mars. The homeless its family does not need starlight. It needs food, shelter, and dignity. In conclusion, I would say that Mars can wait, hunger cannot, rockets can cause, human suffering cannot. So let us choose humanity over vanity and fix our world before chasing another. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Now, may I invite Adu from the Against team to speak against the motion. Let's talk about a world where humans are still on Earth. A world where there have been no advancements in technology and where people are still stuck inside the shell. Not because they were forced, but because they thought leaving poverty meant leaving the ground. And so they never left either. Good morning, everyone. The thing about humans is that before we take a single step forward, we like to think of two reasons not to. It is a pattern as old as our fears, but embedded just as deeply in us is something else. We need to discover, to explore, and to push past what we were told was once impossible. Space exploration is not an anomaly of our story, it is a continuation of it. Not long before we touched the stars, we were told that even touching the sky was a dream too far. To deprive humanity of exploration is not a sacrifice, it is a regression. There is an argument that says space exploration should be abandoned in favor of eradicating poverty. On the surface, it sounds noble. But if the logic is that anything can be sacrificed for this cause, then that same argument applies to far lesser things. For the production of luxury goods, of extravagance, and whatnot. Then why does the conversation always land on the stars? And more importantly, would it even work? The global budget for space missions sits at around $135 billion every year. To eradicate poverty, economists estimate it would take $318 billion every single year. The math does not close. Grounding every rocket tomorrow would simply leave us poorer in a different way. Not to mention the lack of jobs created by the absence of space programs, which creates a deficit of nearly $650 billion after the findings of the Space Foundation. What that argument also forgets is what states has already given back. GPS, satellite communication, water purification technology. These were not countries born from space exploration. These were solutions discovered on the way to something greater. Space is not where you have gone to spend money, it is where we have gone to find it. While the opposition presents space missions and poverty as contradictions, the reality is that they have always moved together. Space missions have quietly shaped the world today. Starlink is one of the clearest examples. Whenever SpaceX launches a rocket carrying Starlink satellites, it provides internet access to the most remote corners of the world. That access educates. It creates opportunities. It opens markets and gives people a chance at a livelihood. That is not an obstacle to fighting poverty. That is fighting poverty. Just not in the way my opponents see it. The choice was never between the stars and the poor. It is whether about we are brave enough to pursue both. Thank you.
Thank you, Agent, for your remarks. Moving on, may I now call entry number 14.
To my dear opposition, I'm not going to start with a great thing. Instead, I'll give you two choices. Right now, somewhere in the world, a child is hungry. At the same time, a rocket worth billions of dollars is getting prepared to launch. You don't get your support both in this debate. So stand up and be honest yourself. Are you choosing the child or the rocket? Because whatever you choose is about to define everything you're about to see. Good morning to the respected judges, teachers, and my fellow participants. Today, I stand firmly in support of the motion that eradication of poverty should be more important than space missions. This debate is not about poverty. It's a test of our priorities, a test of responsibilities, and more importantly, a test of humanity. Let's face the truth. Today, over 700 million people live in extreme poverty, not struggling, just surviving. And billions more wake up every single day uncertain about food, clean water, and basic health. And while that's happening, we celebrate billion-dollar adventures beyond our planet. Now ask yourself, is that really progress or is that escape? The opposition will talk about innovation. I do agree. Space missions do create innovation. But let me break it to you. Innovation means nothing if it doesn't reach the people who need it the most. Because what's the use of advanced satellites when a child can't even access education? So what's the use of exploring new worlds when we have failed to fix our own? Poverty is the most worst form of violence, as Mahatma Gandhi said. Because poverty just doesn't take away comfort. It steals opportunities. It limits potential. It decides someone's future before they even begin. And try to understand this. Poverty is not the lack of money, it's the lack of choice. No choice to study, no choice to eat properly, no choice to dream bigger. And when millions of people live without a choice, can we call ourselves a progressive world? Let me make it simple. Imagine your house is on fire. Do you build a balcony there or you put the fire out? You put the fire out. Today, poverty is that fire. And every single moment we delay, the fire spreads. We already have the resources, we have the money, we have the technology, we have the knowledge. What we lack is just priority. So today, this debate is not about what we can do, it's about what we choose to do first. And let me ask you this. Are we really just going to ignore the fact that humans have evolved so far into the future? They can build machines so powerful that they leave Earth, but still hasn't built a world where people can live with dignity. So today, let's just not think as debaters. Let's think as mere humans. When history looks back at us, it won't ask how far we reached in space. It will ask how well we took care of the people on Earth. Because in the end, a society is not judged by the height of the progress. It's judged by how well it lives on people. By this, I conclude my speech by saying, before we reach for the stars, let's make sure no one gets left in the dark. Thank you.
Well, that was convincing. Great. Next, we have Adrian from the opposition. Exploration is not a luxury, it's a strategy for survival. A warm greetings for all present here. I stand firmly against notion, siding with the significance of space travel and research. Certain individuals believe that we're living in a choice between the soil beneath our feet and the stars above our head. But this is a false conception. They incompetently frame this as a choice between hardware and humanity. Fail to realize that they are interlinked, and this is no neat, Jamie multiple choice question. To say that we should stop looking up until all the problems on earth are solved is like telling a farmer to stop sowing seeds until he's down to his last loaf of bread. This is short-sightedness. This is a recipe for stagnation. And stagnation undermines development. First and foremost, I would like to address a myth regarding the wasting of money. The money utilized for space research does not disappear into a black hole. It stays right here on Earth, sustaining the development of high-tech industries and supplying us with millions of jobs.
Poverty does not occur due to lack of cash. It occurs due to lack of infrastructure, technology, employment, and a solid vision. The social factors of poverty can be beaten with technology like satellites for planning and management, GPS logistics navigation, and advanced water purification techniques, which are all given birth due to space travel. Furthermore, space travel and technologies, LEO technologies, low Earth orbiting technologies provided by Starlink, Amazon Rio, CubeSat, and the well-renowned STC have helped enhance and establish internet connectivity and free basic Wi-Fi services present in the households of you, me, and my fellow Miss. Space travel and research have not only secured jobs, they have also secured lives. During 2020, FOA launch satellites helped detect one of the worst desert locust invasion in Africa, saving about 25 million people from famine. 25 million people. And this is just one instance. During the fighting cyclone in India, 1.2 million people were saved. During the Mahasan cyclone in Bangladesh, up to 1 million people were saved. And in the Ira hurricane in the United States, staggering 10 million people were saved. All this, and still, my fellow opponents anti-denies space travel and research. Poverty is often driven by scarcity of resources. Earth is a closed, finite system. The minerals are finite. The land is finite. The energy is finite. But space is an infinite horizon. By investing in space, we're investing in the future of humanity. The conclusion can be said, we did not escape the Stone Age because we are not stones. It is because we innovated. By not giving up, we're not moving forward. I envision a human world in which we are not loved or compromised by a butterfly. Thank you. Thank you, Adrian. May I now call for the next speaker, 24 from the 14. We live in the era of staggering contradictions. We have the technology to photograph black holes billions of light years away. Yet, we cannot ensure that a child in a developing nation has 3 glass of water. Good morning, everyone. Today, I stand here firmly for the motion. As a 2K kid, I have watched ads get faster every year. But solving poverty, still loading, still nothing, still ignored. Look, I get it. Rockets are cool. Watching the space and boost and land itself makes us all feel like we are living in a Marvel movie. It's got by aura. But you know what is in the aura? A $1.2 trillion bill for just a maybe a society that abandons its tourists. To go to the stars doesn't deserve the stars. If we take our current system of inequality to space, we aren't expanding humanity. We are just exporting our cruelty to a new Silk Road. You know what has inspired us? Wiping out world hunger, building schools for their roommates, and giving every human a fair shot at life. We don't need a satellite that tells us people are hungry. We need the political will to feed them. The research we truly need isn't into the soil of the game, but into the economic system that allows the top 1% of the world to hold health more than the bottom 50. The most dangerous argument for space missions is the idea of Plan B. That we must colonize Mars because Earth is dying. If we have the billions to terraform a frozen radioactive wasteland like Mars, we certainly have the same billions to fix the soil, the climate, the economic systems of our home planet. Investment in poverty eradication is investment in human capital.
By lifting people out of poverty, we can unlock millions of billion brains who are currently stifled by survival. Some say lifting people out of poverty doesn't compete with human progress. I say it is human progress. How many Einsteins or Curies are we missing out today because they're too busy in search of food? Let's be honest. Mars isn't going anywhere. It's been a cold, red desert for about 4 billion years. It can wait another 50, right? But a hungry child can't wait until next week. First, let's conquer the frontiers of hunger, homelessness, and human dignity. And then, only then, reach for the stars. Choose the people, choose the planet. I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you, A4. Now it's turn for the opposition team. May I invite A4 from the against team to give away his constructive views.
We cannot solve all our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. Good morning to one and all. Today we have gathered here to debate on the topic eradication of poverty is more important than space missions, where I stand against the notion. The question is not whether poverty matters. The question is whether abandoning innovation actually solves it. And history says no. Have you ever heard about the 2007 cyclone Sidr in Bangladesh? It was a category 4 cyclone with winds ranging more than 200 km per hour, which affected thousands, if not millions of people and caused major structural damage. But here's the catch. Around 3.2 million people were evacuated before the cyclone had hit the vulnerable country. Only because satellites were used to track down the storm and analyze where and when it would hit. The storm did not become any weaker. The systems became stronger. And that's what saved lives. If that does not convince you, then let us take another example. The major poverty reduction seen in China didn't come from cutting innovation. It also came from building infrastructure and data systems that made growth possible. Around 800 million people were uplifted out of extreme poverty by accurately estimating poverty levels, by analyzing nighttime rise, roof quality, length of roads, number of buildings and hospitals, all with the mere help of satellite imagery. If humanity had followed the open's footsteps and if Thomas Edison had preferred to eradicate poverty over inventing the light bulb, then we would still sit here in darkness and not know what to do with poverty. If space research is so useless, shut down satellites for 48 hours. Over 70% of GPS systems would immediately degrade, weather forecasting would weaken, and global communication networks would be disrupted. By Thursday, the same world mocking it wouldn't be debating, it would be begging to restore what it lost. Finally, I would like to conclude by quoting John F. Kennedy. The nations that mastered flight did not become poor. The nations that mastered electricity did not become poor. And the nation that will master space will not become poor. Thank you.
Well, that was convincing, A4. Now may I invite the contestant from the 4 team, F5, to share his views.
My opposition is out here flexing about touching the stars, while millions can't even touch a stable meal. If this is what my opponents call progress, then their priorities need emergency surgery. So today, I'm here not only to debate,
I am here to drag their humanity back to reality. Good morning to one and all present here, judges, audience, and my opponents, who look like they've come prepared for a debate, but are actually about to witness a cosmic level reality check. Today we discuss why eradicating poverty is more important than space missions. But come on, let's be real. This isn't even a debate. This is a moral IQ test. And unfortunately for my opponents, they're failing in it big time. We're out here launching rockets into the void, while millions can't even launch their day with a meal. That's not ambition, that's humanity trying to distract itself with shiny objects because it couldn't handle the mess it created on Earth. It's like sweeping the dirt under your rug and then bragging about how clean your ceiling looks like. My opponents will say, but space missions help us discover new worlds. Sure, but don't you realize that before you go planet shopping like cosmic tourists, you actually have to fix the condition on Earth before that? It's like your house is collapsing, your roof is leaking, your floor is cracking, and instead of repairing it, you say, hey, let me go see if Jupiter has better architecture. If logic were a spaceship, my opponents wouldn't even qualify to be in the waiting list. But again, they'll argue, space missions inspire humanity. My opponents, poverty actually limits humanity. You can't dream of galaxies when you're dreaming of survival. You can't reach for the stars when you're trying to reach your next meal. And you can't talk about advancing mankind when mankind itself is stuck fighting for basic existence. A nation that cannot lift its own people out of poverty has absolutely no business lifting rockets into space because real progress isn't measured by how high your rockets fly, it's measured by how high your people rise. But if my opposition believes that space missions outrank ending poverty, then let this be the moment their argument collapses under its own cruelty. Because celebrating rockets while millions starve isn't ambition, it's abandonment. You don't get to call it progress when the price is human lives. But still, after all of this, if that's the hill they choose to defend, then this debate is already over because humanity will always outshine their hollow dreams of distant planets. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, F5, for your remarks. Now, I would like to invite A5 to speak against the motion.
This common myth that every dollar spent on a rocket is a dollar snatched from the hungry. Sounds noble, doesn't it? It's emotional, it's dramatic, and it's completely wrong because the truth is that every dollar invested in space returns up to $7 back to the economy. Assalamu alaikum and a pleasant morning to one and all. Space exploration isn't just about astronauts floating in space or flags planted on the moon. It's about innovation, communication, medicine, weather prediction, disaster management, and the future of humanity itself. This modern world we enjoy every day has been shaped directly or indirectly by discoveries made through space research. It's hilarious how my opponents call space missions useless. Well, if space missions really are so useless, then why use satellite internet? Why use GPS to track your Swiggy orders? Why check the weather forecast before your Goa trip? Yes, poverty is tragic. Nobody's denying that, but let's be real. Ending space missions won't magically feed a single hungry child. Why?
Because poverty doesn't exist due to rockets. It exists due to corruption, poor governance, lack of education, and unemployment. And if poverty really does exist due to corruption, then did corruption come from Mars? Unemployment fall from the moon? Did inflation come from Jupiter? Or did greed come riding spaceships? Why? Why blame scientists for problems made by politicians? Blaming NASA or ISRO is like blaming your math textbook because you failed your history exam. It's funny. When a rocket is used to launch missiles to level the city to kill thousands and millions of people, nobody talks about the poor, the hungry. But when the same rocket is used for life, for science, for the advancement of the human race, suddenly everyone becomes a chartered accountant. Space exploration isn't a distraction from poverty. Rockets aren't just metal, fuel, and fire. It is human curiosity made visible. And it is proof that our species still dreams, still questions, and still tries to move forward. The day humanity stops looking at the stars is the day humanity falls behind. Thank you.
Thank you, A5. I next invite F6 to give away his views. Nelson Mandela once said, overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity, it is an act of justice. Yet here we are, spending billions searching for life on other planets, while millions struggle to survive on this one. Esteemed judges, respected opponents, and my dear friends, good morning. Today I stand before you to strongly support the notion that yes, indeed, overcoming poverty is more important than space missions. For quite a while now, humanity has been obsessed with conquering space and reaching for distant planets. Because, of course, nothing screams advanced civilization like launching billions of dollars into the sky while thousands sleep hungry on the streets. Now, don't get me wrong, space missions are fascinating. They bring scientific discoveries, technological advancements, and of course, global prestige. Nobody's denying that. But let me ask you all a simple question. What is the purpose of this progress if basic human necessity is still a luxury for millions? Since its creation, NASA has received nearly $1.8 trillion in cumulative funding. People, not a million, not a billion, but trillions of dollars. Can you imagine that? Experts estimate that even if 1/10 of this amount had been used to solve poverty, millions could be lifted from extreme poverty. Millions could put a roof over their heads. Millions could bring food to the table for their families. According to recent UN reports, 1.1 billion people across the globe suffer from multidimensional poverty. Poverty continues to destroy lives every single day, yet nations, they continue spending these absurd amounts of money on space exploration. Instead of feeding the thousands of starving children in Gaza, we're investing billions to send people around the moon. Instead of solving the displacement and famine crisis in Sudan, we're putting rovers on Mars. Is this not absurd? Even in economically stable nations like the US, millions can't afford proper housing and healthcare. A nation's greatness should not be measured by how far its rockets travel, but by how well its people live. And in conclusion, I'm not against science or exploration, no. But priorities matter. And when basic human necessity becomes a luxury for millions, wasting this much money on distant planets becomes morally questionable. Humanity's first mission should be humanity itself. Thank you and have a nice day.
Well, that was convincing, F6. Next in row, we have the member from the opposition team, A6, to give his opinion on this topic.
We choose to go to the moon, not because it is easy, but because it is hard. These were the words spoken by the American President John F. Kennedy in 1962. At the time, the US was deciding whether it was worth it to spend billions on space exploration while countless problems still existed back on Earth. Honorable judges and everyone present here, good morning. I stand firmly against the motion that eradication of poverty is more important than space missions. My opposition begins with one simple truth. This motion presents a false dilemma. It assumes humanity must choose between helping the poor and exploring space. We do not. Space missions are not some billionaire hobby detached from Earth. They actually improve life here. The satellites launched through space programs provide weather forecasting for farmers, GPS for transportation, internet connectivity for remote regions, and disaster monitoring for rescue teams. Ironically, many of these tools used to fight poverty exist because of space research. Secondly, poverty does not exist because governments invest in space. Poverty exists because of corruption, poor policy, unequal distribution of wealth, and weak institutions. If every rocket launch stopped tomorrow, the poor would not suddenly become rich. Now, I know many of you might be wearing glasses right now in the audience. And I know some people who can't even imagine their life without glasses. Have you ever wondered about your glasses or marveled at the technology behind them? Such a small but powerful thing. Now imagine this. Imagine if those glasses kept breaking, cracking, or getting scratched every single time they fell, even from a minor incident. Imagine how frustrating and difficult daily life would become. The reason they are durable and reliable today is not by chance. It is because of continuous scientific research and technological innovation, most of which is driven by space research. And it's not just glasses. The entire world around us, the technologies developed for space have produced countless advances in medicine, materials, communication, engineering, and technology. Every great advancement in human history, from electricity to aviation to the internet, all looked unnecessary to someone at first. If humanity had always prioritized only immediate survival, we would still be living in caves. A great society must be capable of both compassion and ambition. It must feed the hungry and reach for the stars. So no, eradication of poverty is not more important than space research, the way this motion suggests. Because the truth is, the pursuit of knowledge, the search for what lies beyond us, and the desire to understand the mysteries of our universe is one of the most noble pursuits humanity can undertake. For these reasons, I strongly oppose the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, A6. Now comes F7 to speak for the motion.
What's the point of reaching the stars when so many people on Earth cannot even reach their basic needs? Assalamu alaikum, respected teachers, honorable judge, and my dear friends. Today I stand firmly in favor of the motion that eradication of poverty is more important than space missions. Now, don't get me wrong, space missions are amazing. Rockets flying, astronauts floating, satellites spinning. But here's my question. What exactly are we trying to prove in space when millions on Earth can't even afford their next meal? It's quite strange that humanity is proudly searching for water on Mars while so many people on Earth still doesn't have clean water in their own home. Just imagine saying this to a poor family, like, sorry, we can't solve your problem right now. But good news, we found a rock 300 million kilometers away. That's not progress, that's terrible prioritizing. Over 700 million people still live in extreme poverty. They don't need space missions, they proper food, water, and healthcare. Yet millions and billions are put into space missions, which are mostly just for bragging rights and getting few oohs and ahs from the crowd. If saving life isn't a priority, then what is? Because no matter how many planets we explore, it's pretty pointless if people are dying of preventable diseases. Now, I would like to ask my fellow opponents that even if we discover new planets, how does that help a child starving in Africa today? Or is that just a distraction to ignore the millions suffering here? My opponents clearly ignore the fact that the next Einstein might be starving in poverty right now. Every child trapped in poverty is a loss of doctor, a loss of engineer, a loss of scientist who could have built your precious rocket. Poverty is not only about money. It's about child without education, families without healthcare, and people without opportunities. Even if a small fraction of the money spent on space missions are invested in fighting poverty, millions of children could finally go to school. Families could get proper health care and countless people could finally live with the dignity they deserve. And let's be honest, many countries treat space mission like a competition. It's like our rocket went higher than yours. Meanwhile, poverty is sitting quietly in the corner saying, excuse me, remember me. The universe is vast, ancient, and incredibly patient. It will still be there for us to explore tomorrow, next year, or even next century. But the child who went to bed starving tonight, the mother who can't afford medicines for her sick child, they cannot wait. So while my opponents prepare their space suits, I urge you all to make our priorities clear. Save lives and poverty and fix this planet. Then maybe, just maybe, we can look up at the stars and truly be proud of what we have achieved. Thank you.
Thank you, F7. Now, I would like to call A7 on the stage to speak against the motion. As Tsiolkovsky once said, Earth is the cradle of humanity, but one cannot live in a cradle forever. Good morning, honorable judges, respected teachers, and my fellow speakers. Let me start with a question. Why do people act like poverty and space missions are two kids fighting over the same last slice of pizza? They're not even in the same budget category. Blaming rockets for poverty is like blaming your calculator for failing your exam. Let's talk numbers. Because numbers don't get emotional. NASA gets 0.4% of the US budget. ESA gets 0.03% of the EU budget. ISRO runs on 0.05% of India's GDP. Meanwhile, the world spends $2.2 trillion on militaries, $430 billion on cosmetics, and $160 billion on video games every single year. And my favorite stat, ISRO's Mars mission costed $74 million, while Avengers Endgame costed $356 million. So reaching Mars is literally 5 times cheaper than watching superheroes punch Thanos. Now the benefits, because space missions aren't just pretty pictures from orbit. NAA satellites helped save 397 lives in 2022 through search and rescue detection. Early warning systems reduce disaster deaths by 6-fold in countries that have them. Earth observing satellites save over 1,200 lives annually in the US by improving catastrophic weather forecasting. GPS, the thing we use to find the nearest shawarma shop, powers $1.4 trillion of economic activity in the US every year. GNSS-based precision farming boosts crop yields by 15 to 20%, directly helping farmers escape poverty. And the jobs? NASA supports 312,000 plus jobs. ESA supports 100,000 plus jobs. The global space economy is heading towards $1 trillion by 2040. Tell me again how. Space missions don't help people. Poverty is caused by inequality, unemployment, corruption, lack of education, and broken systems. Not by a rocket peacefully orbiting Earth. Stopping space missions won't magically create jobs, fix governance, or redistribute wealth. It will just make us technologically slower and still poor. Let's be honest. We don't choose between helping people today and preparing for tomorrow. That's like saying, don't build schools until everyone is already educated, or don't buy medicine until you're already healthy. Space missions are long-term investments. Poverty eradication is an immediate responsibility. Both can and must happen together. So no, eradication of poverty is not more important than space budgets. Space budgets strengthen our ability to fight poverty, create opportunity, and build a future where poverty isn't even a debate topic anymore. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, A7. Now we have the next contestant from the 4 team, F8, to speak for the motion.
Tonight, 700 million people will sleep hungry. Tonight, 400 million kids will go to bed without a single book in their homes. Tonight, 150 million people will sleep on benches, streets, and shelters. And yet, tomorrow morning, we'll proudly clap for another satellite launch, another rover, another historic achievement. Assalamu alaikum and a very warm morning to one and all present here. I stand before you to speak for the motion eradication of poverty is more important than space missions. Today, I stand here not to choose sides, but to expose priorities. Because when numbers this massive exist, when struggle this real exists, the question isn't space or poverty. The real question is, how can we celebrate the skies while ignoring thousands of people collapsing on the grounds? This debate was never about technology. This debate is about humanity. The great US that we glorify spent 93 billion on the Artemis moon program. Meanwhile, 34 million, I repeat, 34 million American citizens are still trapped in poverty. China is building space stations. Meanwhile, 600 million Chinese citizens are still living on less than $150 a month. What kind of progress is this? What future are we chasing? What are we proving and to whom? As Muhammad Yunus bluntly pointed out, poverty isn't born from the poor. It's built by the systems around them. Because when governments that can fund rockets, rovers, and lunar dreams and still can't fix the systems that keep millions unheard, uneducated, unemployed, homeless, and hungry, then poverty isn't a tragedy. It's a choice we keep making over and over again. Because this is exactly where my opponents fall silent. Because no argument, no statistic, no patriotic slogan justifies leaving thousands of people to suffer on the roads. Before I leave, I'd like to leave you with one final truth. Long after applause fades and the headlines disappear, the moon will forget our footprints. But the earth will never forget the people we chose to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, F8. The next speaker we have on the stage is A8, who is going to speak against the motion.
Charity may begin at home, but progress is found by looking ahead. Good morning, honorable judges, respected teachers, and my worthy opponents. Before I start my speech, I would like to ask a question to all audience. Must humanity really choose between helping the poor and exploring space? I believe it's a false choice. We do not have to pick one over the other because we can and must do both. Firstly, space technology helps us solve problems on Earth, like satellites helps us monitor natural disasters, improve communication, and support agriculture. In India, ISRO satellites provide accurate weather forecasts that help farmers identify the best time to sow seeds and irrigate, multiplying their profits and lifting families out of poverty. Space satellites also helps us give early warnings for floods, cyclones, and storms, saving the lives of vulnerable populations that are most affected due to natural disasters. So, is space exploration really separate from fighting poverty? I believe it's a part of the solution. Secondly, space exploration drives innovation and economic growth. The money spent on space exploration is not sent in outer space. It is spent here on Earth, creating jobs and driving innovation. But still, people say that space programs are expensive. But honestly, have you seen the prices of popcorns in movie theaters? Technologies made through space researchers have improved weather forecasting systems, communication systems, and remote medical services. Satellites provide internet connection in remote areas, rural villages, offering children access to education and breaking the cycle of poverty. Imagine if the previous generations would have not invested in innovations simply because problems existed. Then, would we have the electricity, aeroplanes, or the internet today? Lastly, space exploration unites humanity in a way that few endeavors can. It encourages young youth to pursue careers in science, technology, engineering, and math, also known as STEM. Such an example for it is International Space Station ISS, which is a setting standard for peaceful global collaboration. To conclude, I say this. Progress should not be stopped because challenges exist. Progress should help us overcome them. Thank you.
Thank you, AA. Now, may I invite the contestant from the 14, F9, to share his views.
Good morning, everyone. Development should start from the ground, not from the sky. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed judges, and anyone still dazzled by space rockets while people go to bed hungry. And that includes you, my dear opponents. Let me be very clear. Choosing space mission over eradication of poverty isn't visionary. It's avoidance. It's like renovating your rooftop while your house is on fire and call it long-term planning. We are told that space exploration represents progress, innovation, the future. But what kind of future are we building if millions of people can't get clean water, education, and basic healthcare? A future for whom exactly? Because last time I checked, you can't eat moon rocks, and Mars doesn't need Wi-Fi if half the Earth can't afford bread. Now, don't get me wrong, I love a good rocket launch, the drama, the countdown, the aesthetic. But there's nothing glamorous about ignoring sufferings right here on Earth while pouring billions into the sky. It's not ambition, it's misaligned priority with a shiny PR team. Let's talk facts. Poverty is not just some abstract issue, it's a daily, brutal reality for millions. It limits human potential, fuels instability, and creates a world where entire communities are locked out of opportunity. Eradication of poverty doesn't just help individuals. It transforms economies, strengthens societies, and creates a world where innovation can actually be inclusive. Imagine the breakthroughs we'd have if every child had access to education instead of survival being their full-time job. Meanwhile, space missions, while impressive, are not urgent. They are not life-saving for majority of humanity. They are, at best, long-term investment. But poverty is a now problem. It is immediate, it is solvable. And choosing not to, while we absolutely have the means, that's not lack of resources, my friend. That's a lack of will. And let's adjust the usual arguments. But space exploration leads to technological advancements. You know what else leads to advancement? Investing directly in people, in education, in infrastructure. You don't need a zero gravity lab to figure out that a well-nourished, educated population is the greatest engine of innovation we have. Here's the real scene. A society that prioritizes escaping Earth over fixing it is telling you exactly what it values, and it's not humanity. So before we dream about colonizing other planets, maybe we should try successfully inhabiting this one. Because what's the point in reaching for the stars if you're stepping over people to get there? Eradication of poverty is not just more important than space missions, it is the foundation that makes any future worth having. Thank you.
Well, that was convincing, F9. Next speaker we have on the stage is A9, who is going to speak against the motion. Honorable judges, respected teachers, and my dear friends. Picture two rooms. In the first room, decision makers approve $2.24 trillion annually for defense and security. US, China, and Russia, just these three account for nearly $1.3 trillion. The discussions take minutes. Approvals, second nature, unquestioned. And poverty, the crisis we are supposedly sacrificing everything for, never even mentioned. In the second room, scientists from every agency on Earth, NASA, ESA, ISRO, all combined request $100 billion globally. And suddenly, every dollar is questioned. Suddenly, we can't afford both. Same governments, completely different standards. Here is what those standards miss. Space missions are not preventing poverty eradication, they are poverty eradication. November 1970, Bhola cyclone strikes Bangladesh. No satellites, no warnings. By morning, 500,000 people are dead. May 2020, Cyclone Amphan hits the same coast. Satellites track it. 72-hour warnings issued. 3 million people evacuate. Deaths 128. Space technology saved 99.97% of the lives that would have been lost. Not someday, but right now with every storm. NASA needed to solve a problem. How do you feed astronauts on missions lasting years? Their research led to spirulina nutrition breakthroughs. Today, that same technology treats over 2 million malnourished children across Chad, Niger, and Burkina Faso, reducing severe malnutrition recovery time from over 6 months to just 3 weeks. As Norman Cousin said, the tragedy of life is not death, but what we let die inside us while we live. Every time we sacrifice innovation that saves lives, we let humanity's future die a little. So, when they ask you to choose between poverty eradication and space exploration, remember those two rooms. Remember where poverty was never mentioned and where it suddenly became everyone's concern. Thank you.
Wow, that was convincing, A9. Now, I would like to extend a warm welcome to our respected principal, Dr. Mohammed Imran, and our head of department, Mr. Biju Anthony. Can we have a huge round of applause? We have come to the end of the first round, and all the participants have expressed views. And now 5 minutes will be allotted for both the teams to prepare the rebuttal.
negativity. Because progress that leaves behind people is not progress. It is a privilege disguised as progress. And honestly, the opposition speaks as though humanity can simply skip Earth and move to Mars. That sounds like failing your current exam and saying, I'll top in the next semester. No, you fix the present before gambling in the future. And let us think realistically for a moment. If we continue celebrating distant ambitions while slowly neglecting human struggles here on Earth, if poverty deepens, opportunities disappear, and people lose hope, then I genuinely want to ask you guys, who exactly will come and fly your rockets? Aliens from Jupiter? Because last time I checked, astronauts were still humans. Humans who are still on Earth. Humans who are still hungry, struggling, and waiting. My worthy opponents ask us to keep looking at the stars. I ask to look around. Thank you.
Thank you, F1. I would like to call on stage A1 for his rebuttal speech.
My dear opponents think that removing space mission magically removes poverty. And in the 1990s, Russia did exactly that. After the Soviets collapsed, Russia's space program funding was slashed by 80%. So poverty must have dropped, right? Wrong. If the pre-reform poverty standard had still been applied in 1999, 60% of Russians would have been classified as poor. They gutted the space program, poverty exploded. The proposition's own logic tested in history. Then came the headline argument, fix Earth before space. Sounds noble, isn't it? When did humanity ever solve one problem before starting another? We didn't cure every disease before building schools. We didn't end hunger before developing the internet, which, by the way, also came from space and defense research. Progress is parallel, and it always has been. That argument isn't wisdom, it's a bumper sticker. They give you emotion, they give you imagery, they give you nothing else. No mechanism, no plan, no explanation for how cancelling a single launch feeds a single child. History already ran the experiment, and history disagreed with it. And yeah, one more point. One of my dear opponents mentioned about a burning house. Of course, the safest option is to leave the house as soon as possible, not decorate the walls. Maybe that's why we are colonizing Mars. Think about it.
Thank you, Evan. Next in row, we have F2 from the 40 for his rebuttal speech.
Good morning once again. My opponents just painted a beautiful romantic picture of the cosmos. It's truly poetic. But let's bring them back down to earth where rest of us actually live. They want us to look at the stars, but according to the World Bank, over 840 million people are looking at empty plates every single day. They tell us that going to Mars will inspire humanity. Tell me how inspiring is a flag on a red desert to a mother who cannot afford clean water. Nelson Mandela once said, eradicating poverty is not gesture of charity, it's an act of justice. NASA Artemis program alone is projected to cost upwards of $100 billion. My opponents look at the receipt and say, yeah, that's a reasonable price for some cool space selfies. If you truly believe leaving millions to starve while billionaires play tag in stratosphere is a grand achievement, then your moral compass isn't just broken, it's lost in orbit. Thank you.
Thank you, F2. Moving on, we have the contestant A2 from the against team to deliver his rebuttal speech.
Let me begin by saying that if Christopher Columbus had a budget committee, we'd still be in Europe. Good morning once again. One of my opponents mentions that we have tons of problems on Earth before we can step into space. But exploration has never waited for Earth to be perfect. If it had, we would have never left the cave. Progress on multiple fronts is it not a contradiction? It is how civilization has always advanced. My opponents mentioned that innovation is useless if it does not reach people that need it. Let me remind you that Starlink is actively providing internet to some of the poorest and most remote communities on the planet. The benefits of space are not reserved for the privileged. They are increasingly reaching those who need connectivity the most. One of my worthy opponents has also mentioned that human dignity is more important than space exploration. But I'd like to remind them space exploration is focused on people. Every satellite, every technological byproduct traced back to space exists because of people and for people. The purpose has always been human. Thank you.
Thank you, A2. Moving on, we have the next contestant, F3.
Good morning once again. The opposition talks about rockets like they're symbols of greatness. But tell me, what greatness exists in a world where a child dies of hunger while billions burn in the sky for applause? They call that progress. That's not progress. Progress is not measured by how far humanity can travel. It's measured by how many humans we refuse to leave behind. The opposition wants you to look up at the stars. We want you to look down, down at the people the world has abandoned. Because the truth is, you cannot tell a hungry person to wait for innovation. You cannot tell struggling families, don't worry, at least we reach Mars. That means nothing to them. They're asking humanity to change the impossible while ignoring the unbearable. What kind of civilization spends more energy searching for life in space than protecting the life in Earth? A broken one. And let me say this clearly. A rocket launch may last minutes, but the silence of a hungry child lasts a lifetime. The opposition speaks of tomorrow, but there are people who may not survive tonight. So no, do not just stand there and redefine ambition as morality. Because a society that can touch the stars but cannot lift its own people has not evolved at all. It has failed itself. Thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, M3. Next in line, we have A3 with his contradicting opinions against his opponents.
By staying constant, we are not moving anywhere. More than two of my opponents talked about funding food crops, starvation, and farmers. Yet, they wish to defund satellites, which is responsible for up to 70% of farmlands. They directly aid 70% of farmlands. And this is no baseless guess. It's a bulletproof fact recorded by NASA. One of my fellow worthy opponents framed a large portion of his speech talking about Mars, and that he also further stated that spending money on Mars is a large, vast amount. It wouldn't take less than a second to fact check that only 0.3 to 0.5% of the American government budget is spent for Mars. Statistics speaks louder than baseless noise. Thank you.
Thank you, A3. Moving on, we have the next contestant, F4, with his firm convictions to oppose them against team.
Good morning. Let's give a quick round of applause to the opposition for the cute little bedtime story. It takes a truly phenomenal amount of delusion to stand up here, ramble about outer space, and honestly think you have contributed something useful to this room. The opposition wants to sit in an ivory tower and pretend we can do both. But budgets are tight, resources are finite. Every dollar you shoot into the
Space is a tolerance stolen from a starving community. Prioritizing everything means you care about nothing. They say we go to space to inspire the next generation. But let's look at the math. How many potential engineers, doctors, astronauts are we burying today? You talk about inspiring a child in a developed nation with a rocket launch, while millions of children in the third world are too malnourished to even look up to the sky. The most distinguished judge in this room isn't a scientist or a politician. It's the person who can look a child's child in the eye and justify a moon landing. I can't do that. Can you? I rest my case.
I'll tell you one thing. What players thought
Thank you, F4. Our next speaker is Football, contradicting his opponents.
you get what is the opportunity? Yes. No, how do you get your like
Breaking news. Employment is struggling, education gaps are widening, and healthcare systems are under pressure. And somehow my opponents, who are so hyperfixated on space research, believe the solution to all this is cutting space programs. One of our opponent's argument was that innovation often reaches wealthy populations first, instead of poverty. However, history shows that over time, technology becomes cheaper, accessible, and eventually benefits society at a massive scale. Phones were once considered luxury items, the internet was limited to elites, and computers were once unaffordable for ordinary families. Yet today, billions of people use them daily. One of my opponents mentioned that the space budget is unacceptable, but in reality, NASA's yearly budget is less than 0.5 of the total US federal budget, which itself is 5 to 6 trillion dollars. That is what's keeping billions in poverty. As I mentioned before, we cannot solve all our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. Thank you.
A huge round of applause for A4. Now we welcome F5 from the 4 team to share his rebuttal speech.
I was genuinely expecting a serious debate today, but instead, we got an embarrassing tantrum wrapped in the economic understanding of a toddler. This laughably naive fairy tale that grounding rockets will magically solve global poverty is just a breathtaking display of pure ignorance. The opposition is adorable, basically painting us as heartless monsters who prefer shiny rockets and stars over human lives. But please, don't fall for that cheap choice. Honestly, watching them attempt to handle a global complex issue is like watching a goldfish try to climb a tree. It's painful, hilariously unnatural, and totally out of place on this stage. They don't actually know how to fix poverty. They just want to drag humanity into the mud and call it equality. Imagine genuinely arguing that the best way to fix a leaky roof is to burn down the entire house. It's just a clueless tantrum against progress. My opponents, do us a favor. Sit down, log off, and desperately hope that the audience forgets you ever opened your mouth. Thank you and have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you, F5. Now let us welcome A5 to share his convincing opinions.
Once again, Assalamu alaikum and a pleasant morning to one and all. My opponents say that satellite images can't satisfy our hunger. They're correct, except that they forgot that it was precisely satellite imagery that prevented one of the greatest droughts mankind has ever seen. They also forgot that it was space-driven technology which guided 8 trucks and 8 ships to remote areas which were afflicted with famine, remote villages which have been cut off from the rest of the world. My very broad-minded opponents also said that poverty is a fire. But it so happens that taking away money from space funding and putting them into the fire does not put it out. Because if you have any idea how world economics works, giving money to the poor doesn't solve poverty. But of course, my opponents still say space missions are useless, completely illogical. I guess my opponents really did sell their logic to solve poverty. Thank you.
Give it up for A5. Our next speaker is F6 from the 40 to share his rebuttal.
The test of our progress is not whether we add more to the absence of those who have much. It is whether we provide enough for those who have too little. Quote unquote, Franklin D. Roosevelt. I believe my opposition said every dollar spent on space returns a solid $7 to the economy. Well, if economic return is the justification, why do you think developing countries invest more in education, healthcare, and housing? Eradication of poverty creates massive long-term economic growth. Feeding a hungry child may not produce a Mars rover, much to my opponent's disappointment, but it does create something even more valuable, a functioning human being. If I had the luxury of time, I'd go on for another 3 minutes, but I don't. So I'll end my speech saying, when someone steals another's clothes, we call them a thief. Should we not give the same name to one who could clothe the naked and yet does not? Thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you, F6. I now welcome A6.
Honorable judges, my opponents repeatedly keep arguing that space missions cause poverty or that space missions should be prioritized over solving poverty. But their case rests on a false assumption that space technology contributes to poverty. It is not the cause of it, nor is it separate from its solution. My opponents repeatedly keep arguing. My opponents repeatedly keep saying that we spend billions and billions on space programs. But the truth is, we spend less than a fraction of 1% of our annual budgets on space programs. So where do they get this number from? Did ChatGPT give them the wrong information, or are they intentionally misguiding our audience? So you see the problem here. We are focusing on the wrong issue. So I return to the central issue. They are not proving that space missions cause poverty, nor that stopping it solves poverty. They are simply asserting that poverty sounds more urgent, and urgency is not an argument. Thank you.
That was convincing, A6. Next in row, we have F7 from the 40 for the rebuttal.
Assalamu alaikum again. My opponent said that poverty exists in even countries with no space missions. So if poverty exists without aid, then space missions are solving nothing. And if they are solving nothing, then every rupee, every real, every dollar spent on them is a direct betrayal of every citizen living below the poverty line. The question is no longer whether space missions cause poverty. The question is why are we still funding them while people are starving out there? They talk about discoveries and technology. But what is the use of all this technology if it cannot first solve basic human problems? They are focused on finding life on other planets while we are focused on improving life on this planet first. Because what is the point of searching for a better world somewhere else while we are failing to make this world better for our own people? At last, I would just say the stars will still be there tomorrow, but the child dying of hunger tonight won't. Thank you.
Thank you, F7. May I call upon A7 for the rebuttal?
To my opposition, I argue, you've been devoting emotions. I'll debate evidence. You'd say 700 million people live under $2.15 a day. How dare you spend on rockets? But the World Bank proved every 10% rise in broadband connectivity cuts poverty by 1.38%. And in rural developing nations, that broadband runs on satellites. Space is poverty reduction. You'll claim space only benefits wealthy nations. Then explain M-Pesa, pulling millions out of poverty in Kenya, running entirely on satellite networks. Or the 2,000 plus NASA spin-off technologies, including water purification systems deployed in developing nations today. You'll call this a moral urgency debate. So is this. The UN uses satellite imagery to coordinate humanitarian relief across famines and conflict zones. Remove space infrastructure, you lose the emergency tools saving lives right now. And if you argue redirecting space budgets to the poor, name which corrupt government guarantees that money actually reaches them. Space delivers aid without a broken middleman. Space isn't the obstacle to ending poverty. Arguments like these are. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, A7. We now have FA from the 14 to present his views.
Does anyone have an extra sense? Because a few have just lost it. Good afternoon once again. My dear opponents, I understand everyone's entitled to be mindless once in a while, but you're really abusing that privilege. Space missions inspire the nation. Inspiration is valuable, but it cannot replace food, shelter, and education. A hungry child doesn't need inspiration. He needs opportunity. Space missions help national pride. National pride means nothing if the nation's people are suffering. Pride built on neglect, that's not pride, it's denial. Space is the future, it seems. The future is meaningless if the present is suffering and collapsing itself. I've come to the conclusion it's illogical to argue with y'all because some of y'all are comparing poverty with popcorn prices. Let that be the last time you mistake volume for value. Next time, speak with substance or don't speak at all. I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you, FA. Next to share his rebuttal is A8.
My opponents argue poverty eradication should come before space exploration. But honestly, if poverty alone made a country weak, then how is India launching rockets that are cheaper than Hollywood movies? If Hollywood can spend more on fictional space battles than India spends on real space missions, then space exploration is clearly not an unreasonable expense. It is a smart investment. And let's be real, poverty is not solved simply by throwing money at it. There are stories of a person who begs on streets while owning two shops, a penthouse, and earning more than office workers. Clearly, the problem is deeper than lack of money. To end, I say this. A great nation does not choose between feeding its people and building its future. It does both. Thank you.
Well, that was convincing. Now we welcome F9 from the 14.
Good afternoon once again. My opponents may argue that space mission brings scientific discoveries, technological advancements, and national pride. These achievements, while admirable, cannot take priority over the suffering millions of people who struggle every day for basic survival. If even a portion of money spent on rockets and space missions is invested directly in people, we could bring education, jobs, healthcare, and a better future for millions of the people. A nation is not truly successful because they can reach the moon or Mars. It is successful when its people can live with dignity and without poverty. You speak like thunder, but strike like drizzle. I've heard louder truths from silence. So you keep the mic, I'll keep my peace. Thank you.
Thank you, F9. Now, last but not least, we have A9.
The opposition has invoked dying children, the most powerful image in the debate. And I want to be clear that suffering is real and it matters deeply. But emotion is not a policy, sympathy is not a strategy. And if we truly want to help those children, we do not dismantle the technology forecasting the drought that threatens the harvest. We do not defund the systems warning their families of floods. We help them with everything we have, including space. However, there is another bigger problem. My opponents want to cut prevention to spend more on treatment. That's backwards. In firefighting, we don't eliminate smoke detectors to hire more firefighters. Thank you.
Thank you, A9. May I now take the privilege to invite the judges to share the reviews of the event. To begin with, may I call on stage Mrs. Asprina. Give her valuable feedback on the event.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's been a pleasure listening to you all debaters. Congratulations to each and everyone. You all have done a wonderful job. Debate is not just about winning. It's about, expressing yourself clearly, and you all have done that beautifully. So once again, a big round of applause to each and everyone who has participated. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Let me now invite our head of department, Mr. Biju Anthony, to share his comments on the event. Uh, Respected HOD, Mr. Biju Anthony, teachers, teachers who are acting as judges today in this inter-class debate, the participants who have spoken for and against the motion, and student, Assalamu alaikum, and good afternoon. Poverty has always been my area because for the last, say, when I started my journey as a teacher, I have been working on eradicating poverty, right? Because I'm a teacher of economics, so I've seen that all the policies of the Indian government since the time we got independence. So this debate has been there since then, okay? So, but as far as this topic is concerned, good topic, no doubt about it. But dear children, we have to always understand that eradication of poverty is important, but at the same time, space mission is also important. Because we don't want that our country, India, should lag behind in terms of scientific advancement, space exploration. Why? Because whatever the development we have in terms of science, space mission has a lot of role to play. Okay, so we cannot deny. So both the things has to go hand in hand. As far as social development is concerned, very important. We know that the people are living in abject poverty. They are living in poverty has, if, for your knowledge, poverty is not only that they are unable to fulfill their basic needs. Nowadays, when we say poor are also voiceless. They have no voices.
they are easily discriminated, right? They are denied the rights. So poverty comes in many dimensions. It is not only not having, access to food and shelter. So always remember this, but at the same time, India being a democratic country, India being a mixed economy, we always have to look for our citizens that we should provide. And at the same time, as I said, that we have to go for scientific development at the same time. So I must congratulate both the teams. They definitely have done a great job. Congratulations to both the team. Thank you, English department, for organizing this inter-class debate. I know this is a very, very important event of our block. And from this, we select the best debater for inter-school competition. So both the teams have done a wonderful job, okay? And always there is this, area for improvement. Definitely the judges might have noted it down, but don't feel sad if you don't win the prizes and the trophy this time, okay? Coming to the podium, giving a speech here without looking in the paper, it's itself an achievement, inshallah. Okay, so I wish you all the best. Keep it up, and I also congratulate the efforts of all the students who have been the MCs of this event. Let us give a huge round of applause. And the credit also goes to the entire department of English for spearheading this, wonderful organization, and also the credit goes to the wonderful audience today here. Thank you all for being here. Thank you.
Now, may I call upon HOD, Mr. Bijo Anthony, to join with Principal Sir to witness the most anticipated moment, the prize distribution.
it was very strong and tight competition. For motion and against the motion. We were having a very good fight of words, and we have witnessed that. And I know that you are eagerly waiting for the result. I just want to announce the result for winning team. We will see later. First of all, I want to announce the result for the best speakers. Starting from the third position. Best speaker for the motion. Third prize goes to Muawiyah ul Haq. It's for against the motion. Third prize goes to Muawiyah ul Haq. Please give me 2 round of applause. Yes. Thank you, sir. The second position, best speaker, second position against the motion, user of sir. You. Now, any guess for the best speaker? Here, the best speaker shared by 2 persons. Akshay Revikandan with the 68 points and Muhammad Quran with the 68 points. Muhammad Quran. Give them a huge round of applause. Yes, now for the motion, the third position for the best speaker, third position goes to Jason Samuel with the 67 points. And second position, Al Tawsif with the 69 points. Al Tawsif. What about the first position? Any guess? Okay, I read it out. First position goes to Abdul Rahim with the 71 points. Abdul Rahim. Now, the final prize, the winning team. You're running for and you're running against. The prize is won by the 4 team with the 579 points. 579 points. I request all the team members to come forward to get your prize.
you.